Good day, everybody. WoofDriver coming at you live. Once again, this is my try to make it weekly VODCast. We missed last week. You know, there's so much going on in the WoofDriver world. I mean, you don't see it all I don't post it all, I should say, from your vantage point, but we're really expanding. By the way, this is from yesterday, so I'm kind of a whooped WoofDriver right now because I went to bed like 3 a.m, and right now here we're at 10:15. We're on we're in Columbia on the Columbia Trail in High Bridge. I keep calling it the High Bridge Trail because the High Bridge Trail is something different because this trail is known around the town of High Bridge. It starts there, ends there, depending which way you run it. That's why I call it High Bridge, but it's High Bridge, New Jersey, and it is the Columbia Trail. It's about 3.5 to 4 hours from our home base in Maryland. And right now, if you saw the beginning, my co-pilot who's in front of me, he rides the trails with me. He'll ride point a lot of times, which means he'll set a pace or he'll ride ahead to make sure that everything is copacetic, for lack of a better description, for us to make it through. No down trees, no dogs off leash, people that have dogs on leash that I know of so I can act appropriately and or adjust appropriately, I should say. I'm going to talk about some wolf tech today, my dog tech. I've got a radar sensor on the back of me, which tells me if someone's approaching. So that really, that's a game changer for me. So we get across the street. This is the town of High Bridge. That's where we started on this trail. Been to this trail maybe a handful of times over the past. I think I was first here in like 2015. So over the past 10 years. And some were with my other dogs. Now this particular, my current generation of Huskies, we were here in last year, May, I believe 28th because I always look up where I've been, how I've been. That depends on how I plan my trips. One of the WoofDriver on tour prerequisites, I try not to get to trails too much unless there's just no choice, meaning weather conditions, travel conditions, whatever. But usually once a year, sometimes twice a year, because I like to see it in different seasons. So there's we had to cross that major street. My co-pilot gets me through. You saw me just go through there. They have ballards, which are poles essentially in the ground, and gates sometimes. And we've got a question or comment, so I'm going to address them as I do this vodcast. So Haley Stevens, hey, good morning, Haley. Haley says, good morning, everyone working and watching. Great to see you. Thanks so much, as always, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I post everything with exclamation points. I love the excitement. Thank you, Haley. So when we started the trail, getting across that road was a lot of work. And why? This trail is really a good trail. Why they don't have a better crossing system there. Some of the cross points where you would cross major roads or any roads, basically, they'll have sometimes where you push the button and it blinks and it lets no traffic to stop. Doesn't mean they're going to stop, but at least you've got some, I'm not going to say protection, but at least you've got some indication for others to wake up, get off the cell phone. There's people crossing because we're low down. But again, busy streets, busy areas. I'll have my co-pilot with me to make sure I make it across safely. But the flashing lights, I'm using different lights. Now, they're not on the side. I do for really heavy congested trails. If we're doing what they call a lot of urban mushing, especially we've done Baltimore City, a lot of city-like trails, then I will put the side lights on a lot of times to let people know from all angles I'm visible, even from the air. Not that they're going to hit me from the air, but that's how visible we make ourselves, or I make the team. By the way, if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate. Put them down while we're live. I'll address them directly. This is after the broadcast, don't hesitate. Put it there. I've been trying to get back. I don't always, but I'm trying to get to all my social media. Sorry if I sound a little hoarse. Just getting over a little cold here. But here we had the dog do a bathroom break. Poop happens, right? And depending on the trail, sometimes if it's there's surrounding woods, I can push it off into the woods. If it requires us to pick it up, some trails do. My co-pilot will usually come by with a poop bag and pick it up appropriately. Sometimes, not to be too graphic here, you can't always pick it up. So you do your best, because we abide by all the trail rules, county ordinances, and everything, regulations, basically. So it's more about the respect for everybody for another trail user, especially a lot of people don't have dogs. They're like, they don't want to deal with that. Nobody wants to deal with it in their way. So that's why we do it. The respect, to me, respect's one of the most important things we can exhibit in life. So that's why I do that. So this is a really cool vantage point because you can see a little bit of me, which isn't so exciting, but you can really see the dogs well, and you can see the electric dog sled on wheels. It's hard to tell from this picture, but I am using what I call the Mush Monster electric dog sled. It's got 26-inch wheels. So basically, I knew this trail, and it does go through some rugged areas. So some of the areas are just, really loose gravel. This particular section was nice, but when you get past out of the main areas, I would say about 3/4 of the way through the trail. Yesterday I was thinking it was, I don't know why, 11 to 12 miles. It's actually 15.1 miles or something. And that's what we did the whole trail. But when you get on these different lays of land, having the wrong tires can really, especially when we're working with the dogs, can really sour the experience, for lack of a better description again. The dogs don't care. I call dogs the original ATV. They can go through anything. I mean, mud, especially sled dogs, mud, snow, you name it, they go through it. And the dirtier, the more rugged, the more extreme, the better for them. So this bike in particular can handle it. But when you get to pavement on this bike, it's a little bit shakier. So it's not as, it's just like, an ATV on pavement isn't as good. By the way, we just passed somebody with a stroller. And I believe in that stroller, I didn't check it out quick enough, was 2 small dogs. I originally thought it was a baby. There was probably a couple we passed with a baby, so maybe that one was. But I always like, with the younger children or the babies, to give them a good view if they're parents and if everything works out, because they get excited when they see this. And I'm all about making good memories for them, and hopefully they'll learn, just from their experience, seeing the dogs, it'll trigger some likeness for dogs as they get older. Now, I'm stopped here. All along the trail, there were different issues. I don't know, maybe that dog is just going to the bathroom, or maybe we're going to do a water break here. But nope, it's a bathroom break. All along the trail, I will, and sometimes I've got to be a little quicker because people are behind me, like the person with the stroller, and I'm trying to stay out of their way. And sometimes people are coming at me and I'm trying to get out of their way. So it's a balancing act. Again, my most important thing is to be, besides the dogs always, of course, but to be as considerate and respectful as possible. A lot of people will complain, like, they see the videos, you always got your keyboard warriors on social media, and they'll say, well, oh my gosh, you're taking up the whole trail. How unfair of you, how, selfish of me, etc. And you can see we fit through the gates fine. Usually most trails, if you fit through the gates and your vehicle is allowed to be on the trail, meaning if it's electric vehicle, like I'm driving here, the motor, the electric combines, they classify them class 1, 2, etc. As long as you're within tolerance of that and you fit through the gates, you're okay to be on there. They don't want, obviously, anything with a gas engine, anything that resembles an ATV, etc. Because some of my rigs are ATV-like, as you probably know if you follow me, and I wouldn't take them on this kind of trail. Now, if there's heavy snow, I've done this before, some of the trails you can bend a little bit because there's nobody out there. I'm talking 5-6 inches of snow. Might be a snowboarder, but I usually will go out on those trails when the actual event is happening, when the snow's happening, because it's fresh and the dogs just love it. And there's usually nobody out there in a storm. So sometimes we might take one of the more rugged vehicles to a trail that can accommodate it in some ways. That's my co-pilot. That's my his bike that he rides, my bike, etc. Part of the team there. He's just taking pictures and doing video and everything else. So I know I made a couple of posts yesterday, and we're going to take a question here. And this is from Joel, bro 2911. Awesome podcast, loving it. Hey, thanks so much, Joel. I really appreciate you tuning in and the positive feedback. Really, really appreciate that. So, and please, everybody, even if you just want to shout out, go ahead and leave me a comment or question or a concern, whatever you may want to post there. So we were what I was saying is that a lot of times when we're out on the trails, especially like yesterday. So now we're getting close to summer. So today is the 3rd, and I believe like the first day of summer is at the summer solstice. Is longest day of the year is June 21st, I believe. So what that means is, besides you getting the longest day with the day having the most lightness, usually, I don't know, sunsets around maybe 8:30, 8:45. I mean, it stays light late. It's going to keep staying light late. The only depressing thing is that the days start getting shorter. And what I mean by that is the sunlight starts getting shorter until you get to the winter solstice, which is December 21st. So it's kind of cool doing this year round because I get a really interesting perspective, just seeing all the trails. A lot of times, if I can make it to a trail twice a year or more, different seasons, they look totally different. You're like, whoa, it's just incredible because you can see through the foliage is gone in the winter. You can see if there's mountains or rivers, waterways around it, you can see. And then of course, the summer when everything's in full blossom, you can see a lot of times flowers, wildflowers. You can see just what the forest looks like. So, and you usually will get different animals because, of course, some animals hibernate. And depending on the time of day, a lot of times in the warmer months, we'll go in the more evening hours when the sun isn't bearing down on us because it's cooler, obviously. And you'll get the nocturnal animals coming out. So it's really, nature is so interesting. And it's really quite the experience to be able to experience this with the dogs. I mean, wow, how much more nature can you be? We've got a question or comment. So Sue Nine, I know I'm saying that wrong, says hello. Hello, so thank you so much again for taking the time to comment and say hello and to check in. I really, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Keep them coming, folks. So I'm just talking about it's almost like I'm going to say a natural high. Being out there in this predicament might be the wrong word, in this setting is just beautiful. I mean, you've got nature, you've got the birds, you've got squirrels and deer and all of Mother Nature's wonders. And then you hear the birds and you hear nature. And a lot of times you can find trails that are away from the highway. So you don't have the highway pollution, noise, etc. And it's just, wow. And of course, the bike, the electric dog sled on wheels, even when I'm using the motor to assist the dogs, it's usually really quiet. So you still can hear your surroundings loud and clear, which just immerses you in nature. And sometimes I know people, they to clear your head, people take a walk on a trail or just run along a trail, whatever the case may be. And it's cleansing. It's incredible. Got another question or comment here from So says, Nying again. I am watching from Korea. How cool, So. Love to hear that. And I've never been to Korea, but I will tell you, I've studied Taekwondo, which is a Korean martial art. And I've studied Gumdo, which is a Korean sword art, with a grandmaster from Korea. 20 plus years I was with him. And so I've eaten a lot of Korean food, which I really like because of his influence, and learned a little bit about Korean culture because I had a friendly relationship with his daughter and his son. So we spent a lot of time together and had a lot of talk. So really cool. They were doing a trip to Korea one year and I never made it. So I hope to make it because my father's now passed away years and years ago, but he went to Korea and he absolutely loved it. I think I'm going to say he went to the Olympics in Korea. So I'm getting too far into personal stuff, but just a great place. And I really appreciate you tuning in. Just curious if you have any dogs, huskies, sled dogs, or you're just enjoying nature on my channel here. Whatever it is, please keep on watching. If you care to, let me know. Let me know your view here. So, but getting back to what I was saying, that it's just such an incredible experience. And these trails are all around us, and a lot of people don't realize that. So these trails, like what I did yesterday, cost me nothing except for, the travel expense and having my team there, a team of people, because and a lot of times my team of people will do this because they love what we're doing. It's just incredible. And I've had so many great people with me over the years that I've learned so much from, because they were out. Some of them are real outdoorsmen. Some of them, one person in particular was had his degree in, I think, is it botany? He knew all about the plants and the animals and everything going on. So he really educated me, and I've learned from doing this so much, self-educated as well. So, but what's so great about the trail system in the United States, and probably in a lot of places in the world, we have a big trail system here called rail trails, which are old railroads that usually they'll take the tracks up, and you can walk it, you can bike it, you can do sometimes horseback ride it, etc. And it just gives you an experience, because where the railroads ran, a lot of times they're near the rivers. A lot of times, at least the railroad trails that I've been to, the rail trails, they're pretty level, so they're real conducive to bike riding, to not having to be too physical. And now they're allowing more and more trails, these electric bikes. So when you get older, like I do, people say to me, well, you're being lazy because the dogs are pulling or push. I call it pushing in this particular setup. Push to mush. But my knees are not great, and I'm getting older. I could use exercise, but getting out there on a trail and that kind of exercise is going to be too demanding on me at this point. Maybe I'd get into shape, but I'm never going to keep up with the dogs. Hence the bike, because I used to pedal with the dogs. So, you can go, I don't know how many times faster pedaling than walking, but you can start to keep up with them. With the electric motor, it makes it so I don't have to be physical at all. In fact, some people that are physically challenged, handicapped, etc., can do what I'm doing. They can have high energy breed dogs, because they don't have to be mushers. They don't need the physicality, and they don't need the training or knowledge. So really interesting. So these trails called rail trails, they're all over. If you look them up, depending where you live, you can probably find some, I would say, within 10, 20 miles of your house. I mean, of your house or where you live. I was shocked how many there are. I mean, forget the number, 2,500, something crazy. But if you go to my website, railtrails.com, I've got a lot of websites, but if you go to railtrails.com, you'll see my experience on a lot of these trails. Some of the trails I go to aren't always rail trails. A lot of them are similar. It depends what vehicle I'm using, like I mentioned before, how I'm running the dogs, what kind of workout. And again, that ties into my system of mush CrossFit. If I'm running them for grade, for incline up mountains, a lot of those trails are not trails, they're mountain roads, at least in my area. And if I'm going for speed, I might use a blacktop trail. And if I'm going for weight pulling, I might use a blacktop trail. And if I'm going for what I call LSD, long, slow distance training, kind of like we were doing yesterday, more times than not, I'll go for these gravel type trails. So it depends on, you get a lot of trails that are mixed, but people are very cautious, and rightfully so. I think everybody should be as cautious as possible, but know your dog the most importantly. So a lot of times people will say, well, again, we talk about this, why are you using pavement? Your dog shouldn't be on it. And that's an old wives' tale. You always have to evaluate the situation and the dog. So what kind of speed you're looking to achieve, what kind of distance, are they hauling weight, time of year, weather conditions, etc., and the dog, the capabilities of the dog, and what they're conditioned for. So and again, it's one of the reasons I'll take so much time to post so much and to have these vodcasts, because Huskies in particular, a lot of working breeds, are so misunderstood. But when you get to Huskies, I can't believe it that in some areas, Huskies are considered nuisance dogs, in the sense that I know somebody who is an attorney. So they're very astute, very knowledgeable about laws and contracts and everything else. And they happen to, it's a couple, they happen to buy a place down in Florida. And she's a Husky girl. She loves huskies, and she's had a husky. She lost that husky about I'm going to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and she's got, I think, greyhound she rescues. She rescues all her dogs, and in her homeowners association or in her insurance, whatever it was, there's a stipulation you can't have a husky. And she's like, oh my God, you can't have I mean, a lot of times you see that about pit bulls because of their reputation. Usually all this stuff is owner related that got us to where we are, because people misunderstand these breeds. They don't know how to properly handle them, and they make them into or they influence them the wrong way, and they become problematic. So, and I know people, and I've done this too, that work with shelters to make these dogs adoptable, that have just been exposed to terrible things, and they've had terrible lives, and they're not what the breed's about. So the people are taking some of the traits and making taboo, making bad stuff out of them. With huskies, a lot of times it's this energy drive that isn't dealt with properly. And that's how I got into this, because I started with a bike when I realized my husky was just crazy. Like, and that husky wanted to run forever. And I'm like, I can't keep up. And I was in my physical prime at the time, 23-ish, 24-ish. And I had a house, I had the room, but I mean, even if you live on a farm, the same scenery every day, the husky is a very intelligent breed. It's got to be challenged differently. So putting that husky on a bike and going to a few different trails around me, the roads, etc., I was able to wear that husky out. And that's my motto. I can wear out any husky. So people will take a husky and they'll walk it 3 or 4 times a day. And you could walk that thing 24/7. And most of them aren't going to tire out. Now, there is, as this breed continues to evolve, every husky is not a true sled dog. And today, sled dogs are not huskies for the most part. They might have some husky traits in them, but they breed them. They're basically mutts. They breed them with all different breeds to take the best out of each breed for the purposes of dog sledding. So a lot of times today, there's not depending on your husky, almost all of them all dogs should have some sort of exercise, but depending on your husky, their drive is going to determine what level of exercise they need. And we talk about zoomies, where zoomies are when the dog just gets this erratic, spastic surge of energy and just runs around like a maniac, basically. And huskies get the zoomies. Now, depending on the energy outlet you have for your husky, can help quell that. Zoomies aren't the worst thing in the world, but when these dogs are not properly exercised, they will find other outlets and challenged. It's not only physical, but it's psychological too. So it's all about enrichment. We've got a question here. So this is from Cabrera W 1290. Your dogs are lucky. You're not doing anything wrong. Thank you so much, Cabrera. I really appreciate that. And I started this 30 plus years ago. So when I got into it at first, I was questionable. What is good for the dog? What's not? So I actually consulted with my veterinarian, and I'll never forget, my veterinarian gave me such a wise piece of advice. He said, have you ever tried to make a dog do something they don't want to do, especially for a long period of time? And I said, yeah, I've tried. How was your success rate? Very little. Now, I could train dogs, but to train them to do something like this when the energy levels and a lot of the traits aren't inherently in them isn't going to happen. So I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So I always gauge the dog by their feedback, physical and psychological, because huskies, as I was alluding to, are a highly intelligent breed. And sometimes doing this, some huskies will love, some will get bored with it. So when they get bored with it, now, if you take them to a place like a farm, you'll see me on sometimes, where there's a lot of smells and just tons of animals, almost like a sensory overload for them. It's hard for them to get bored of it because there's just so much to indulge them. But on these trails sometimes, because they're not exposed to all the animals. They have the sense of animals that have walked there, but it's not full on like a farm may be. They will actually, some can get bored. So it becomes a mental thing with them because you want to get their exercise in and you want to keep them psychologically enriched. But you also don't want to create a monster, which can happen where they can dictate to you what they're going to do. So, and you have to know, sometimes they're tired, sometimes they're not as capable as another husky, et cetera. So there's so much that goes into this. But as I was alluding to before, I've worked with shelters. I know people that have for pit bulls. A gentleman I know became almost like a pit bull sanctuary. He would take the worst dogs from the Baltimore City, we're in Baltimore, shelter called Barks. And he would take them to his home where he bought a home with an expansive amount of lands. And he divvied it up with his knowledge and also working with my master trainer in a really smart way. So he could have multiple pit bulls, but he could keep them separated when needed. So there wasn't fighting because, they're famous for fighting, obviously. And that's where all the problems start. But he would take the most problematic ones, even deaf ones, and he would rehab them basically and make them adoptable pets. So they were more likely to get adopted and wouldn't face that terrible fate of, God forbid, euthanasia because nobody was adopting them. They were too mean to handle, too problematic. So I'll never forget, I went to his sanctuary. I'm calling it a sanctuary. That's pretty much what it was. And they were, it's a little intimidating because he'll have them all out in a yard, or at least a good number of them. I don't know, 10 or 15, whatever it is. And they're all coming towards me. And I'm like, whoa, am I good? And he's like, I'm used to dealing with huskies. So a lot of them will come at you, knock you over maybe, and just lick you to death. But I know the reputation of pit bulls, and I know these are problematic ones that just unfortunately had bad lives up until he got a hold of them. And he's like, listen, a few of them are deaf. Just take your hands. You can say no, the ones, no jumping, whatever, the ones that can hear you, and then just cross your hands like that. It's almost like a martial arts move I'm doing here, but put it down and they know not to jump because they can see, but they can't hear. And I'm like, what? I did that. I was like amazed. And these pit bulls were wonderful. And he had rehabbed them. And we actually interacted with some of my huskies. We would do walks. We would do socialization, etc., just to because I had full control of my husky. And as long as he had full control of the pit bull, we were good to go. And it was good socialization, especially for the pit bull. So again, we can make that pit bull adoptable. So we've got a question here. So Cheryl Gilchrist, Cheryl, so wonderful to see you. Cheryl says, good morning to you. And I really appreciate you tuning in and dropping by and saying the good morning. I really do appreciate it. Cheryl's just a long time WoofDriver alumni, maybe. She's been watching my videos when we would go live back, I don't know, when Facebook first started live 15, 20 years ago. So wonderful to see you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so getting back to, oh, by the way, I'm taking a break here on the trail. And you can see, I don't say this enough. My co-pilot here is actually spraying the dogs, spraying little puddles around the dogs so they can submerge their pads because they emit heat from there, and the friction with the ground is where the most heat's going to build up. And it's a real effective way of cooling them when they can put their pads into the water. So if I see a puddle on the trail that I know is safe, I'll go through it, let them cool themselves accordingly. He will also do a spray, and this is all humidity dependent. So if it's real humid, the on the bottom is fine, but if it's not humid, we can spray the dog themselves, their fur, not to submerge them, not to get them wet to their skin, which is really hard to do anyway. They've got a weatherproof coat on them unless you're grooming them and you haven't got a tub. It's hard to get anyway. So we spray a light mist, which will coat their hair, and you can actually see it. It looks like I'm going to say a clear frosting on a cake, for lack of a better description. And as that evaporates, it can help cool them. So I believe it does. If you got humidity, it's not going to evaporate. Depending on the humidity, it might not evaporate at all. It might just make a mat, kind of trap the heat in them. So they're really well insulated anyway, but the hair the hair can create a place for the wind to blow through, or the breeze just running, or just any breeze that's coming along, which helps cool them. And the wetness can help further that cooling. But if it's humid, it's not going to evaporate. So humans will cool by sweating, and the sweat will evaporate off us, and that's how we cool. It helps us cool. It doesn't mean we're not going to have, God forbid, heat stroke, and it certainly doesn't mean the dogs aren't going to have some heat issues, overheat, which can be fatal to them. But you could see them spraying yesterday. It was just no humidity. It was, low humidity. It was just absolutely gorgeous. And I use these Roughland water holes, make sure they get watered. And sometimes they'll dip their pads in the water bowl. Sometimes I'll use trays, all depending on what's going on. But back to the conditioning for the dogs. So working with different breeds. So Huskies are different than Pit Bulls, obviously. But as I explained, this gentleman set up a sanctuary, and it was incredible. What a great way to give back, if you will. So these dogs would become then adoptable. He'd give them back to the shelter. He'd find people that wanted to adopt them directly from him, etc. And they had a new lease on life, and they were friendly. The fighting days, the mistraining days were over them. With Huskies, it's a different kind of problem because of this energy drive. And again, some of them are just over the top. One of my groomers said to me that the dog Cyan, which is closest to me, the rear dog on my right as I'm sitting in the electric dog sled on wheels there, we're so glad you have Cyan, the team of groomers. And I said, well, why is that? They said, because she is just the friendliest dog, but one of the most hyper dogs they've groomed. And she just wants to, we call her the body climber. She just wants to engage with you, hug you, and put her eyes to your eyes and lick you and jump on you, and every physicality you can think of, she wants to do to you. So she is a bullet of dynamite, basically. So other people would have her. If they didn't have an energy outlet for her, she would be a problem dog that a lot of people couldn't handle. But and believe it or not, last week we were just doing local stuff because so much rain, I was a little under the weather, so much going on my personal side. And there's always stuff for the dogs to do. I've got an amazing chase course, I call it, lower coursing, and big yards, and I rotate them. So they always get their fill. But the groomers, they got groomed Friday, and the groomer said to me, oh my God, a couple of your dogs were out of control in a good way. They're never nippy, they're never aggressive, etc. But they were just all out. And I said, because they didn't get a lot of running in this week. They got a lot of home, a lot of loving, a lot of hanging out. They got some energy release, but not like the bike, the electric dog sled on wheels can give them. And people don't understand. They'll say, well, I walk the dog 3 or 4 times a day. It doesn't matter. Some of these dogs, especially working breeds, Huskies, they have an insatiable appetite for exercise. And that exercise puts some enrichment in there. Let them do it out in nature. You can put them on a treadmill. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying treadmill. I use a treadmill. Treadmills are bad or anything, but the treadmill is strictly the physicality of it. When you get them outside, all the smells they take in, that's enrichment. So sometimes we can't get out. Last week we couldn't get outside, so the treadmill came into play. And but they couldn't let loose, what I say. They couldn't air it out fully. So Huskies are a complicated breed. And I post here and I do all this just to let people know what they're in for. And I'm not trying to say it can't be done. I knew nothing about this. I was, 30 years ago. I was 20 years old, 25, 26 years old. I'm 58 now, so 28. Okay, I can do math. It's early for me, but 28. They maybe 26 because I'm more than 30 years. But they can actually. I picked up a bike. I realized the dog was just too much for me. Even I was like pretty good physical prime, and I got this device called a Springer. There's other ones out there today that let me safely hook the dog to the bike. I rode the dog a mile, and the dog was like the best dog in the world after. Pirate dog is a good dog. So just trying to let people know and educate them so they know what they're getting into. But on the flip side, the Husky is such an adventurous breed. And there's a bunch of adventurous breeds, but such a great dog to adventure with that it gets me outside. It makes the Huskies make me do stuff, and I'm going to say keep me young. So that's why they're so important in my life. So keep the questions and comments coming. You'll see us down the trail, and we're moving here on the Columbia Trail, High Bridge, New Jersey, is where we started. They're moving at a walking pace. And we've got a question here. So this is from Mary Ann Eider J Turf. I'm saying that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. So watching from Spain, I want to do what you do. Thank you so much for the comment and taking the time to watch us. So it's really easy. I know it's actually, besides my family life, it's one of the coolest things I do, and one of my most prized activities, just because I'm giving the dog such a wonderful life. That's why. And to see their happiness, my biggest joy is to give my dogs their biggest joy. So again, super easy. You can get a Springer device. They call it Springer Dog Joggers on Amazon. I don't know if you have Amazon in Spain. I'm assuming you do, but I know because a lot of the equipment I use, believe it or not, is made in Europe. So I know like Norway and some of the areas where you get the colder climates for sled dogs have developed a lot of this equipment. So I think the Springer might be made in Denmark. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure you can find something like it. Basically, it's a device that can attach to any bike. Today, a lot of people are using the electric bikes, like I mentioned. So you don't even have to, you can take your dogs up mountains, up hills, depending on the terrain and where you're at. And you can run the dog. You can walk the dog. Almost any dog can do it at any life stage because they don't have to pull. Now, when you evolve a little bit, if you want to get a little more into it, you can even get these recumbent bikes. That's basically what I'm on, a recumbent trike, 3 wheels, so I don't have to balance. And you can pretty much lay back. You can attach the dog to it with springers. I've done that for many years. Go to my site, WoofDriver.com or dogmotorsports.com. And you can put these springers on there, and they can ride right next to it. You can't fall. The dog can't do anything bad. The Springer keeps the dog safely tethered to the bike, and you use the electric, or you can, excuse me, or use pedals, and you can exercise your dog. And believe it or not, I've got a 14-pound Chinese Crested. We had another Chinese Crested before this. I've done this with my Chinese Crested, and I've done it in different capacity. You can see that. That's a page called All Dog Mush, MUSH.com. Excuse me. So, I mean, this whole WoofDriver lifestyle evolved, and then it became traveling to these different trails and letting me see pretty much the East Coast of the USA, places I had no idea existed. I posted a post last week of the Continental Divide. What the hell's a Continental Divide? I had no idea, but obviously, well, not obviously, because I didn't know. It's a mountain range, if you will, and where it rains, what side of the mountain the rain falls on determines where the rain goes into, like the Mississippi Valley or the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Does it go to the Atlantic Ocean? Does it go to the Pacific Ocean? Really interesting. So I've actually run into the Continental Divide twice in my life. More than 2 times the same divide, though. The one that's around me in Pennsylvania, which is 3-4 hours from here. It's actually on a trail. I mean, the Continental Divide goes all through the area, but there's actually a tunnel that goes under part of the mountain range, and that's a really cool experience. But the first time I ran into the Continental Divide, I was on a sled dog team in Banff, Canada, which is the Canadian Rockies, beautiful. Lake Louise is there, and ran into the Continental Divide there too. So it's a whole mountain range that goes through, I'm assuming, I guess, through Europe. I don't know, but it's really interesting. So your eyes open to these things. You learn about nature, you learn about geography, topography, whatever, and it's just incredible. So it's like some of these trails, I have a bucket list, things you want to do before you die, and I want to make it out west to with my dogs and run some of these places. But I like to be home at night when possible because just like to be in my bed and like to know the dogs are in their bed, sofa, wherever they're sleeping, because it's just, I don't know, a good feeling. We've done it before on 2-3 day excursions. It's a lot of work, but I want to make it out west. I'm hoping that to propel the WoofDriver, we're working on a pilot. We've got dogdocumentary.com, and hopefully we can get, I guess, affiliated with one of the networks that can help fund what it would take for me to travel the way I want to travel for extended periods of time and make it to. There's some phenomenal trails in the United States that I know of. Now, I wouldn't make it over to Spain or Europe, but obviously, when you start taking the dogs out of the country, it becomes a lot more. A lot more complicated, a lot of logistics, and I'm not looking to do that because the United States got plenty of trails. I like to get out to California, not Alaska again, because that would be traveling through Canada. That would be international stuff. I know you can fly and do all that stuff, but I've got such specialized stuff. It would take like a container to go up the Pacific Ocean, whatever it is, to get to Alaska the way I want to do it. By the way, these were bridges yesterday that were pretty well maintained. This whole trail, the Columbia Trail, was really a nice trail. There's some rougher parts of it, and I'll be posting later that there's a jogger running past that I actually got to one area. It goes through just a small industrial section. Remember, these were old trainways, railroads that run all along, and the industry makes sense because the train would come to the location and they would fill it up maybe with coal or whatever they were working on, and then the train would go off, and the closer it comes to the place, the less you got to haul the material to another location, etc. So we get to this industrial area, and the first thing I saw, I'm always looking, is something shiny. I'm like, ooh, glass. And dogs and glass, you certainly don't want to get it entangled in the pads. I've never had this issue where they've stepped on any glass that has stuck them, fortunately. But keep in mind, it can happen. And keep in mind, when they're digging, when they're really trying to accelerate, they are more likely to put their pads down harder or hit the ground harder and get the glass in them. It makes them more susceptible to it. So what I did was I immediately summons my co-pilot and I said, hey, Scott, glass, check it, please. That way, because I didn't want to leave the electric dog sled unattended. We were in a precarious spot, this industrial area. It winded through there. Pretty, a lot of cornering, a lot of hill climbing, just small hills, or I should say big inclines on small hills. So he got out. He's like, oh my gosh, that's glass. What kind of vision do you have? And I don't have great vision, but I'm always looking for obstacles, for issues that could create obstacles for us. So what he did then was he did a quick once over. He looked at it just with his eyes, walking through the area. Then he got on his bike and he ran through the area again, doing a twice over. And then I proceeded very cautiously and very slowly. That way the dogs didn't have to dig. If they would hit, God forbid, a piece of glass, it would be they would be less susceptible to it impeding into their pad. Their pads are tough. But if you get glass in there, if you hit it at the right angle and it goes in there like a human getting in on our feet and our hands, anywhere in our body, and it can create problems. That's why I always travel with a pet first aid kit. So I've got a turn kit in there, just some items that are pretty simple and easy to have, don't take a lot of room, but there in case we ever need them. And I'm going to say that I've never needed it out on the trails, but I've got a turn kit in there. I've got some vet wrap, they call it. I got something to call it. I forget what they call it, to stop bleeding, to kind of clot it up, basically, with this. I guess it's some kind of almost glue or something. It's medical for them, and a couple other items to just make it so I could address, God forbid, a medical problem for the dogs on the trail till we could get a professional's help, a doctor, a veterinarian, a vet tech, etc. So that glass did not create a problem. I watched the dogs carefully and made sure that they look good. I checked their paws, their pads, etc. Sometimes, they can get something lodged in their pad. You might not even know for a few days because then it starts to get infected. The body starts rejecting it. I'm not a doctor, but I've seen this happen with thorns. And that creates a problem too. So it might be something natural. It might not even be something artificial like glass, etc., man-made. So that's important. And most of the time, depending where you're at, the trails are pretty good, and keeping a vigilant eye can really help you. So I hope that, I know I went off there on a little bit of a tangent. I hope that helps you out there in Spain. Please feel free to ask me any questions. I've got a page on the Dog Motorsports website called Getting Started that you can go to. But if you wanted to do something more elaborate, like my electric dog sled, you can do this for 1 dog. You can do this for 2 dogs, up to 4 dogs, 6 dogs. If I make the pole any longer, it's really unbalanced and unmanageable. But if you ever wanted to do 6 dogs, I worked on a pole, an extension bar on the back of the bike, which I had in a post a while ago. I haven't run 6 dogs like it, but I played with the idea, and that could be up and coming in the future. So I know people have more dogs. There's someone that contacted me. If you're watching, they have 6 Dobermans and they want to run them on my they've been trying for years to build a dog cart, essentially. And there's other ones out there. There's sulkies, which is kind of like being in a horse and buggy, and you steer with reins. That's one I've never done. So mine is like a cross between, if you know what a Seiko cart is, more like the dog's pulling, and a little bit, because it hooks on the sides, like a sulky. So it's got a lot of traits from a lot of different dog mushing kind of designs. So, and also dog roading, that's a new sport, and that's all on my website. I've even created a website for that called dogroading.com. So it's all good. It's just, I can't tell you how cool it is to do this. And there's other people, just like we were talking about to the person in Spain, that want to do this. And some of the people have gone along and built similar equipment, and they haven't fully stayed in touch with me. They talked to me about building their equipment and getting there, and then hopefully it's evolved to a lifestyle. They wanted to travel with their dogs and have a similar setup, because they were walking 3 dogs. This one particular young lady in mind, they were walking 3 dogs. She was walking them, and I don't know if it was a control issue, a leash tangling issue, or just her hands were tied up. I mean, you can wear them on a belt, like they call it Caney Cross. You can put there's belts out there where you can wear them, but it's not the same as being able to really cover mileage like a lot of breeds can do, and to really get out there to different trails and not have to worry so much about the terrain, maybe, or about where you're going and how each dog's going to handle it, because they're real concise, narrow footprint, contained, so they're not in other people's ways. And a lot of these trail surfaces work perfectly if the bike can manage them, basically. So that's it. I did want to mention, though, I do this year round, but as the heat moves in, and it depends on what kind of summer we had. Last summer was really challenging here in the East Coast, Maryland area, etc., where we travel to. We've traveled as far as the Cape Cod Rail Trail in Massachusetts to points near Tennessee, right at the border. So I travel all over the place, but and that's what I do. When I look for a trail to go, I always look at weather. That's most important. In the winter, a lot of times, unless there's too much snow, you don't have to worry about it. You're going to have cold conditions. We're not getting as far south as Florida, so we usually don't have to worry about being too warm. But we do have to keep in mind that it does get warm. So to combat the warmth, Dog Motorsports makes it possible so the dogs don't have to fully engage. So they don't have to pull. Again, I call it push to mush. So they can, they're not as engaged, so they're less likely to overheat. It gives them the chance, because I use the motor, it gives them the chance to still get outside, get some light exercise, definitely get psychological enrichment, and go year round. Now, what we'll do if it's too hot, sometimes it's too hot to walk your dog. So if it's too hot, we can't go, obviously. But to avoid that heat, we'll go at nighttime, we'll go in the mountains, we'll do all kinds of, go early in the morning, whatever the coolest part of the day is, all over, and do, because where we're at on the East Coast, I've got access to a lot of areas. We can go 200-300 miles we'll drive in a day. One way. So it might be 4 or 5, maybe 600 miles in a day round trip. So it's a lot of mileage we do. But to find the right area to keep the dogs as cool as possible and then allowing me to get them out is what it's all about. I've got a lot of that. One more website, why not? Mush Cool, COOL.com. That tells a lot about the ways how I try to keep them cool. So I'm the WoofDriver, and I hope you enjoyed it. You're not going to see, we were out on the trail for 4 hours plus yesterday, or maybe 3.5 to 4 hours. I can't remember. And usually our rides go from 3 to 5 hours. So we're out there for a while. And again, depending on conditions, what kind of pace the dogs can do, what kind of conditions the trail's in, etc., determines how long we're out there. But that was about average yesterday. So this video is not going to show that. This was an hour-long video, and we're 50 minutes into the podcast. So you're not going to see the whole trail, but I'll post a lot of excerpts of some of the more interesting stuff we did, passed by, some of the dog tech I used, I was talking about, etc. And please continue to check out the WoofDriver social media, dog documentary. I think you'll be surprised if you followed me on social media. Just go to dogdocumentary.com. It's got some teasers and information about what's in the documentary. It's not currently available, even though it is through production and it's out there it's not out there where you would be able to see it, but we're trying to work with some streamers possibly to get it to everybody. And the pilot, hopefully that'll be out there. The pilot is for hopefully a series we'd like to do where I talked about traveling, etc. So hopefully that'll be out there in the coming months. There are some excerpts that I posted. It was a really interesting ride. We went through Baltimore City. We met with one of my veterinarians, and we also had a little kind of dog ride and a little bit of education with some school children, with some younger children. So it's pretty cool stuff. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to watch, comment, questions, and all that good stuff.